Y'all need to understand exactly what happened last night versus what happened today, because it's a precursor, I think, of what's going to happen this November. Every election that Democrats win, Republicans will challenge and say that there was fraud. This is now getting baked into our system, America. This is not how we do things. The people of Virginia spoke last night. And you can quibble about the process. You may not like what the state legislature did, but how is that worse than what we saw happen in Texas? At least here, the people of Virginia had a say in what the maps in their state would look like. In Texas, Donald Trump made a phone call and Republicans couldn't bend over fast enough to give him what he wants. So just get set at 33% approval, and with losing special election after special election, and now this defeat last night, they're locking in stealing this election this November. Put it out there.
You know what? Alicia touched on a number of things in the open, and I know we'll talk to Senator McCaskill in a second more about Virginia and the lawsuit and whatnot. Shout out to Speaker Don Scott and Senator Louise Lucas, who held the line because they did what they did in Virginia and with the help of, frankly, Hakeem Jeffries, we are looking at a very different situation come this November. Again, we'll see what happens with the lawsuit. I'm very interested in the fact that the voters seem to be understanding that there's something going on with the president. Can we just play the Stop Mash real quick?
For $25 million, and it would be better. It would be better. See this pen right here? Our stock market took the first dip yesterday because of Iceland. So Iceland's already cost us a lot of money. So this pen is very inexpensive, but it writes well. I like it. I picked those drapes in my first term. I always like gold. I love the government like I love myself economically. And I got all you people looking, and you say, there must be something wrong with Trump.
You think Tom Tillis is going to give you
Well, we're going to have to find out. He might not, but that's why Tom Tillis is no longer a senator.
Okay. On the AI
Tom Tillis is no longer a senator, right?
He's on his way out.
Well, no, he quit, but he quit.
Is the president okay?
No.
I think we should be asking this question more and more. The voters, given this polling, seem to understand that. Is it a national security risk? Is the president okay? Is he in charge? Is he calling the shots? Those are questions I have.
We have lots of questions. Let's bring into our conversation to ask them of her, former Democratic Senator Claire McCaskill of Missouri. She is an MS NOW political analyst.
Well, Claire, first, do you think the president is okay? I'm going to continue to ask because I don't know if enough people are asking. Okay, you don't think he's all right.
No.
Why not?
He ain't well.
No. Listen, this is not, there are different levels of not being well. His level is, I look in the mirror and all I can think about is myself. And, one of the things I want to say about Virginia, we can talk about the legality and the fact that it's on pause now because it's going to the Supreme Court of Virginia. But look at the money that was spent in Virginia. I think the Republicans need to wake up. Donald Trump is sitting on a war chest without ever going to run for election again of almost $400 million. Okay? His MAGA PAC. And then you take the RNC money. They have like $600 million more in the bank than the Democrats. So why didn't they spend that in Virginia? Why did the Democrats outspend them 3-1? And you know why I think it is? Because I don't think Donald Trump cares. I don't think he cares whether the House goes to the Democrats or the Senate goes to the Democrats. He's already proven he can do what he wants without Congress. He can tear down the White House. He can build a new, the things he cares about. He can build a new arch for himself. He can make the military go to war at the drop of the hat without any real reason why or justifying it to Congress or the American people. I think he likes the idea that his last 2 years in office, he can blame everything on the Democrats and just get to the stuff he likes to do, which is build, tributes to himself and try to get stuff named after himself. And Congress, they can step up if we win, they can step up and do investigations. But he knows it takes a long time for that stuff to get through the courts. He knows that he's got immunity while he's in office. So I don't think he's trying to win the redistricting war in Virginia. I think more he wants to plant the seed that all elections are unfair. That will be his excuse when he loses in November. And then he'll go do whatever he wants after November. even if the Democrats are in charge.
You know, Claire, I want to peel back a little bit more on the cognitive decline thing, because the one thing that struck me, because I think it's really instructive relative to what we're seeing in the polling. When you go back and you look at the conversation around Joe Biden, that was largely a Republican effort, media campaign, to paint the president as cognitively impaired, old, and all of that, reinforced by a media ecosystem that wrote those stories and put that in front of voters. And in this situation, though, the president is sitting at 33%, Claire. I don't see a whole lot of stories being written about that cognitive decline. We show you just a small tip of the stuff that happens in this town every day out of this White House by this president. And it's not covered the same way. What it tells me, though, is that the voters see this for themselves. They now see and understand for themselves exactly what's at stake here. The man has taken us to a war they didn't want. He's cost families and communities and small business owners a lot of their hard-earned money that they had set aside for savings that they plan to educate their kids with. Hell, just to get groceries this weekend, they can't fill up their gas tanks anymore. There's only one person to look at for that. And when they look at him, they hear the stuff that we played in the clip, sitting there at the desk talking about how much he likes a pen, or bragging about the fact that he hung drapes in front of a hole in the wall. While this war gets prosecuted, and now, which again we haven't talked about because the press, I don't know why they're not leveling it up. Y'all know there's a draft coming for your 18 to 26-year-old child this December, your son, right? Y'all know that. So I think voters are beginning, Claire, to sort of see this thing a little bit differently than they may have seen it with Biden, largely because you don't have that sort of filter.
I think that's right. Now, Trump has one advantage that Joe Biden didn't have, and that is that Trump has always said crazy stuff. And so a lot of the Republicans just write off that, well, that's just Trump being Trump. And Trump, right. Oh, he's a kidder. You hear Republican senators in the United States Senate say, oh, he's just kidding. He doesn't mean it. And they it's just like, it's like the crazy uncle that comes over for dinner. We all love him, and he's going to do the right thing. He may be a little crazy. That's kind of what's going on here. And I don't think that the people in elective office are going to deal with this. I think the voters are going to deal with this. And I think the voters are going to deal with this. And by the way, the other thing, Michael, that isn't covered enough is the corruption. I mean, both his mental decline, his cognitive impairment, his inability to string together 3 or 4 sentences in a cogent thought, and the fact that in the back room, his family is making billions of dollars off the presidency. Those 2 legs of this really unwieldy stool are not getting covered like they should. We are covering the fact that he's doing nothing about inflation. He's doing nothing about the cost of goods for Americans. He's doing nothing in terms of explaining this war and how we're going to get out of it. That's all getting covered. But the corruption and his mental decline needs a lot more attention.
Claire, you referenced the fact that you have Republicans in Congress who are willing to carry water for a president who is increasingly erratic. I want to talk about the judge in Virginia who issued this order, who on paper, it would seem, is doing much the same. This judge, even prior to this ruling, had issued 2 orders that would have stopped this vote on the referendum from ever having happened in the first place. On the latest go around, he was overruled by the Virginia Supreme Court. But I want you to look at 2 things side by side. The first is language that appears in this judge's ruling. And then the second is a message on the president's social media platforms from the president himself. You tell me if you see any similarities. This is from the judge's ruling. The ballot language proposed in HB 1384 submits to the voters a flagrantly misleading question to the voters. And then this is Trump on Truth Social. In addition to everything else, the language on the referendum was purposefully unintelligible and deceptive. As everyone knows, I am an extraordinarily brilliant person. And even I had no idea what the hell they were talking about in the referendum, and neither do they. On top of that, that echoes language that we've heard from the RNC, Claire. I mean, what does that tell us about the judiciary, about the rule of law, about the very systems that are supposed to be issuing checks on this president who, as Michael said, is giving us a preview of what he plans to do in November?
Well, I will say this for the judiciary. By and large, with a few exceptions, the guardrails have held, but usually through the appellate process. It usually takes an appellate court. Now, the Supreme Court has done some things like that immunity decision that I will never understand. That decision by Roberts is a real head scratcher, and I think will go down, unfortunately, as his legacy as one of the worst opinions by the Supreme Court right after Citizens United. But the point is that this is going to be appealed, and it's going to be appealed, and a number of judges will have eyes on this, and a number of judges will opine on this before this process is over. This judge has been overturned before on this subject matter, and it will not surprise me if he's overturned again. And by the way, one thing that they will do, I think, in Virginia is move quickly. Now time is really of the essence because we've got an election in months, not years. And so people need to know who's running and who's not running and where they're running and where the boundaries are. So I think we'll get a final decision in fairly short order. It will not surprise me at all that this decision is overturned. It does sound like to me he's in the tank for Trump.
Claire, I want to go back to a point you made at the top of this about Donald Trump not necessarily caring about the House or the Senate. I mean, I think at one point he did care because he asked Texas to find him 5 more seats. I think that he, by his actions, because we all know what's in this man's head, but by his actions, I think he does believe he can act with impunity. But I do think he's a little scared. And I say that because there are 8 Senate seats at least to watch. I would add more to this list that we're going to put up on the screen. Democrats currently hold Georgia and Michigan. Those seats are up. Republicans hold North Carolina, Maine, Ohio. If we could put it on the screen, Alaska, Texas. Ohio is on here twice, by the way. So Iowa. These are all seats that are up for election. I would also put Mississippi on the table here. I think that that could be competitive. I think that Donald Trump has lived under a House where Democrats are in control, and he was impeached both times. I think that the prospect of a Senate, a Democratic-held Senate and a Democratic House, where Democrats are emboldened by a base that wants them to fight and deliver results, is a very scary place for maybe, if not him, to be the people that work for him.
Well, not that it won't be fun, because there'll be investigations, as there should be, into all that corruption. There will be hearings, there will be subpoenas. But I'm just trying to be a realist about this, Simone. I honestly believe that in 2 years, it is very difficult for Congress to have its way in terms of these investigations. And impeachment requires a bunch of Republicans to vote for it. And we all know the Republicans have totally been, hiding under the table from their responsibilities when it comes to Donald Trump. And I think they'll continue to do that because they want to win primaries. So and if he really cared, why wouldn't he spend some money in Virginia? Why would he be outspent 3-1? I think he's looking for an excuse because he knows he's going to lose. And I think then he's going to be looking, as he always does, who can I blame besides myself? Because we know he'll never take responsibility. He's said famously that he pretends he says he's a Christian, but says he's never had to ask for forgiveness. Now, that's all you need to know about whether or not this guy understands Christianity. And secondly, it's all you need to know about who he is. He refuses to take responsibility for anything he does that is wrong.